So we'll move on to Clare against Wexford this weekend. Davy versus
How have we got through about an hour and 10 minutes without talking about the Davy Derby?
Davy v Lohan Part 3. We saw it a couple of times last year, and obviously we gorge on this sort of stuff. It's great stuff altogether. But Wexford have certainly been on the hind tit against Clare in the last year or two. Like Davies, I would say he senses that those players, those Clare players that he used to have, they're coming in a nice bit hyped up. Just because you don't want to lose against your former manager, do you? And much like Davy does, he wants to show up and give a good account of his team against Clare.
No, I'm sure that like the Clare boys, and you saw it after the game last year, they have the utmost respect for them. But like I even found it when I remember when I was teaching in Banner College and we'd play against my own school in St. Brendan's, where I went to school for 7 long years and did the Leaving Cert 3 times, and I'd have a serious affinity to the place. But when we played against them, there's something in you that makes you that almost fires you up a bit more. I don't know what it was. And then when the game is over, it's gone. But during the game, you do want to win nearly more than against anybody else. So I'm sure the Clare boys are bringing that. I'm sure they've great time for Davy. Memories that will last a lifetime of winning All Ireland together in 2013. But they want to win against him more than anybody else. It's almost human nature.
So when you were looking to get into college then, were they able to add up the points you got from the 3 separate leaving certs and try and get you into a course? Or how
Didn't even make 600 points between the 3 leaving certs.
There's a shock. Like Davy was asked this week, and I was interviewing him yesterday as well, about whether this would be his last year, his 5th year, because everyone keeps assuming that it's his final season. And he goes, I could have walked away in 19. Obviously, a reminder, they won the Leinster that year and had Tipperary on the rack in the All-Ireland semi-final, but were ultimately had that game turned around. He goes, we were in a puck of the All-Ireland. We were right there. I could have said, yeah, I've left them in an unbelievable place. So there's no suggestion that he's decided that this is his final year. But he certainly would need a good one, I think, for everyone to justify him staying another one.
100%, yeah. I'm actually just looking up something here because people were under the assumption that he was gone in his 5th year. I'm fairly sure because he said when he signed up for the 2020 season that it was a 2-year contract and that he was going to be gone at the end of that. Like I can't find it here, but I'm fairly certain that he did, because I remember it being big business at the time. He signed up for 2020 and he signed up for 2021, and that was going to be it. But all of a sudden that seems to have changed over time. He was never going to go at the end of last year with how they went out with a whimper. Really, it was really, really poor stuff against Clare and very, very poor against Galway as well. And they just looked like they'd flatlined after maybe doing too much during the lockdown. But like you'd imagine that like they did a good win last weekend. Clare are coming into this week after on the back of a bad defeat. Davy will have the Wexford lads hyped, but by God, Lohan will have the Clare boys absolutely hyped. And by all accounts, I heard there was a few skirmishes in their training, in the training session after the Antrim game, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Tensions are obviously fairly high. Clare were coming into that game against Wexford last year, that qualifier in Portlaoise, on the back of scraping over Laois, barely getting over them. And there was an almighty backlash against Wexford. And I'd be expecting, how often do you see a bad defeat followed by, a reaction? So I think it makes this game even more interesting, just because Clare were going to get a reaction because they're facing Davy, but they're going to get an even bigger reaction because all the narrative since last Sunday has been, the disaster in Clare over the winter. It's transferring into on-field matters now. So you'd imagine they have a lot of questions to answer at the weekend. And again, I think it makes it even more interesting.
Yeah, well, it's a real opportunity for Brian Lohan to draw a line in the sand, and for the players to say, let's draw a line in the sand, because a defeat like that against a team that you're expected to beat and beat well, I mean, that's without doing any disrespect to Antrim, that has got to rock you to the core and make, like, you can say to the players, look, if any of you now have any issues talking about like what training facilities, what we have, what we don't have, and all that kind of stuff, put that to the back of your minds. We need to go out and give a performance here, because it's your club's reputations, you're representing your families, your reputation, all this kind of stuff. You can G them up to the last, and it's against the team that they've done quite well against in the last couple of years. But do you think that the Davy versus Lohan thing, it has less and less relevance, the whole edge between the two of them, the more we see this matchup?
No, I think it has more. I think it has more of an edge.
Because Davy will want it more now because Clare and Lohan keep beating him.
Yeah, that and like whatever about like not shaking hands and stuff like that. The various things that have happened over the winter, who have been two of the main characters behind it. Brian Lohan, while not publicly saying anything, but he's been one of the main ones. And Davy and the Fitzgerald family have been the other.
And
kind of
Davy
main
didn't
centre
want.
on
And
it.
Davy didn't want to talk about it yesterday, and obviously he was supporting a charity, so he was under no kind of. He didn't have to do it, so he didn't do so. So we didn't get any further light from his point of view on that. He said actually, if he was a younger man back in his previous days, he might have kind of spoken at length on it. But he says a bit wiser.
You get that now on me.
Yeah, you wouldn't. So that game.
But no, I do think, Shane. I think it's as high profile as it's ever been.
Yeah.
Because I think there's a pressure on Lohan now, and I'm sure his survival instincts will kick in. And like, not that they need any motivation. There's no lack of motivation, but I'm sure you'll see fire in his eyes. Like,
yeah,
he was going to have fire in his eyes anyway, but he'd have more with the man that he's going to be facing.
So Clippers fan says Clare seem to lack a few players. We've kind of said that before, even though they're down one or two as well. And Conor Linehan again asks, do you expect John Conlon to remain at centre back? Can't imagine we'll see him for centre back for too long. I mean,
we had a comment in Shane that he was tried centre back for Clonlara and it didn't work either. Yeah. By one of our viewers. He's one of the most dangerous forwards in the game. And you can build a forward line around him. So I'd be surprised if he's not back up there. But as John Milan said to me there during the week, he said, like, whatever Lohan is going to get, abuse or whatever, going to get criticised over placing him there. Well, I suppose that's what the league is about. It's about trying guys. If it had worked, like maybe they'd have a centre back for championship, maybe he'd stick with him. But I think he's too much of an asset up in the forward line.
But there's converting some players, you're like, you can see the merit in it, but at no point, could I have ever imagined this working out. I think he might do an okay job. I'm not saying he'd get embarrassed at centre back, but I just don't see the merit in it. Even hypothetically, I don't see the merit in it.
Can I just say as well on Conlon too? Conlon was the same as Adrian Mullen. It was essentially his first game in 15 months, and he was thrown in centre back against a team that were flying high, who were probably back a couple of weeks earlier than Clare.
And didn't have to sit in a car or a bus for 4 hours or whatever it might have been.
Yeah, exactly. So I think they're mitigating circumstances, but if Lohan wants to get the best out of Clare and get the best out of Conlon, I think he's full forward for me, or even half forward or centre forward.
Yeah, and it's not that he's obviously able to use the ball well back there, but that's not necessarily all there is to centre backs.